There we go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're at 7 o'clock, so I'd like to get started on tonight's meeting. We've got a number of things on the go. So I'll call our council meeting to order. And before I proceed to the next item on the agenda, I wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge the passing of Ivan Suggett. Many of you probably knew Ivan. I know certainly Councillor McCabe did, as he grew up very close to where Ivan lived for many years. So many will remember Ivan, who he served on Arthur Township Council for 20 years, served as a councillor, a deputy reeve, and the reeve. He also served on various boards such as Maitland Valley Conservation Authority and the Maitland Conservation Foundation Board. He and his wife Shirley were married for 53 years, and he was a devoted father to Dr. Terry Suggett and Guy Bertrand of Gowanstown, Tracy and Aaron Lee of Palmerston, and Tim Suggett and Tara Williams of Kitchener. While farming was his first career and passion, and they lived on the Stack Farm, which is Lot 22, Concession 8 in Arthur Township. He tried storekeeping on Precise when he and Shirley owned the Kenilworth General Store for 16 years. And he was an active member of 4-H, Wellington County Junior Farmers, and Wellington Federation in his youth, and heavily involved in his church. So while COVID-19 has upended many of our lives, unfortunately, has taken Ivan from us. So just wanted to acknowledge Ivan's passing this evening. With that said, we'll get on with our meeting, and we'll start with the adoption of the agenda. So I have a motion here moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the agenda of the December 14th, 2020 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening with the items on tonight's agenda. I have none to declare. Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor Yake?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none, Mayor.
Okay, and Councillor Burke?
No.
Okay, thank you. So next on our agenda is before I do that though, I just wanted to make a note. There's a number of things on our agenda this evening, and you know, we may have quite a number of members of the public joining us. We have a number of things on the go. We have a minor variance application, which some people may be registered for to participate in. We have a public meeting for an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment that some may be interested in. And we also have our open house for our budget presentation as well. So we've got a few items to get through. So we're going to do them in kind of the order I mentioned. When we get to it, we'll deal with the Committee of Adjustment. And those people who wish to speak in regard to that will have an opportunity. We'll try to maybe take a minute and sort through that. Same with the public meeting for the official plan amendment. And then also anyone who's interested in speaking on the budget, please be patient while we try to get through, figure out how to make the technology work for us. So yeah, I don't think I have anything further to say on that at this point, but yeah, we'll try to accommodate everybody. Please be patient while we work through them. Okay, Councillor O'Neill, County Councillor O'Neill is here. I think I don't see him yet, but I believe he's here to give us a county council update. Steve, are you ready?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Lennox. I wasn't sure if we were at the start or halfway through. Anyways, well, good evening, everyone. There's a good crowd tonight, I see by the attendee list. We'll start out with waste management. Completed the fall leaf and yard waste pickup at the end of November, 1st December throughout the county. In 2021, there will be monthly pickups done from April through November, and the schedules will be published in the new year. Recycle Coach app on your phone and or tablet will help you with your solid waste scheduling questions. It reminds you when your organics, recyclables, and garbage pickup days are, and as well, it will tell you when your leaf and yard waste pickup weeks are. The RideWell program was severely affected by COVID. Ridership dropped off dramatically, but has seen increases in the last half of the year. You can now get dropped off or picked up at a specific destination in the city of Guelph, as well as throughout the county. It was set up to be a ride-sharing program, but with the COVID rules, it is an individual or same household rider service now. The drop-off and pickup availability in the city of Guelph is much more convenient than getting dropped off at the north or south end of the city and then catching a bus or cab to your final destination in the city. Wellington North seems to be using it fairly well, the residents, compared to a lot of the other townships. With the new year comes budget time. County Council will be meeting in January to go over 2021's budget. I'm encouraged by the number of local municipalities that have worked hard to bring their tax levies close to a 0% increase. The county mayors and county ward councilors need to continue in this vein for the county budget. 2020 was a very trying time for many residents and businesses. And for some households and businesses, it's been devastating. We need to shop local. At the end of October, 4 new housing units opened up for tenancy in Mount Forest. All the units are full and there is a waiting list. There was no official grand opening as COVID prevents any public grand openings for completed projects at this time. Friday, December 11th, Center Wellington Mayor Kelly Linton was inaugurated as warden for a second 2-year term. He'll be the warden for the full term of this council sitting. The committee chairs stayed the same for the second half of this council's term as well. Some council members have moved to different committees, changing the committee's makeup. Mayor Lennox has stayed on as roads chair. Speaking of roads, I never thought I'd be looking at the 14-day weather forecast and hoping for very little winter weather just to keep the road winter maintenance budget down this time of year. But every little bit can help with next year's budget. County libraries have gone to curbside pickup again due to rising COVID case counts. Our libraries are great spots to relax and browse for reading and research materials, just not so good with COVID. And something on the roads again, the Public Information Center online package for Wellington Road 109 Bridges Environmental Assessment will be made available on Thursday, December 17th. These are the 4 bridges just east of Arthur on 109, and the details will be available on the county's website, wellington.ca. Bridge replacement work is tentatively scheduled to begin in 2023. And with COVID related still, 25 of 27 ICU beds in Wellington, Dufferin, and Guelph Health Unit are in use. Not all of them COVID related, but we certainly don't have much capacity left for any serious illness or accident patients to get ICU care. With COVID cases rising in our county in red control, everybody's being asked to please wash your hands, social distance, and wear a mask in public when you can't stay 2 meters apart. And that's about all I've got. Just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays with your family. And have a happy and healthy new year. We certainly hope and expect to be better in 2021. I guess I'll take any questions if anybody's got any. We'll try and get you an answer.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Anybody have any questions for Steve this evening?
I don't, but Merry Christmas to you and to Sue, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything other questions or comments? I would just add to Steve, the Councillor O'Neill, you just building on your comments around the COVID-19 in Wellington County. We're now in the red control area, but in the last couple of weeks, Wellington County has done a great job of bringing a high case count down to a much lower case count. So there's hope that with some of that will help us get back to orange and a little less restricted circumstances sooner rather than later. So again, thank you for doing your presentation this evening, and want to wish you and Susan certainly a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year on behalf of Wellington North.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I guess we'll move on. Next, we're going to move on and recess to move into the public meeting and the Committee of Adjustment meeting. So I have a recommendation here moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the December 14th, 2020 regular meeting of Council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act. This is for Amzie Fry for a minor variance and all Treat Farms official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. All those in favor? That's carried. So we are recessed from our council meeting. Just let me shuffle my papers here.
Which matter
So
will
we'll
you,
deal with the Committee of Adjustment meeting. We'll deal with the Committee of Adjustment meeting first.
which is Amzie Fry. So I see that I'm just going to move Cleon Martin into the meeting. There's some other people on the line here, so I know several of them are for the other application, All Treat. Mr. Benson, are you on the line just to observe the meeting, or did you want to speak to one of the matters on the agenda? Mr. Benson? Okay. Annette Stickney, are you here to speak to a matter, or are you just here for to watch the meeting? Nothing? Okay. I know Dan, Jeff. Okay. Pastor Harry, are you here just to observe the meeting, or are you here to speak to a matter?
Just observe.
Thank you. Janet Harrop, are you here just to observe, or did you want to speak to a matter on the agenda? Sorry, Janet, what was that? Where are we now? And I think that's all that we have on the line. All right, so I'm going to move. Mr. Martin, I don't see Amzie Fry on the line. He hasn't called in. Is that your understanding?
He's unable to connect. He wishes to be online, but is unable to connect.
Okay, all right. So I believe we have everybody that's on the line for this application.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. So with that, I'll call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order and ask again, Council, if you have any disclosure of pecuniary interest in regard to this matter with the application on the Committee of Adjustment. I have none. Councillor Burke? Okay, I see you're nodding no. Councillor McCabe?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Yake?
No.
And Councillor Hearn?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. So we got to deal with the minutes of a previous Committee of Adjustment meeting. So I'm going to moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan, that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes of October 13th, 2020, application A08/20 be adopted as presented. Any questions or comments in regard to those minutes? All those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. So our application this evening is A09/20 for Amzie Fry. The location of the subject property is described as Part Lot 12, Concession 2, with a civic address of 7814 Side Road 6 East. The subject land is approximately 39.6 hectares, and the location of the property is shown on the map in the package. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from the minimum distance separation, or MDS2, setback requirements. The applicant is proposing to construct a new livestock barn and cannot meet the minimum distance required to the nearest road allowance. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. How was notice given for this meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property and mailed to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on November 23rd, 2020.
Okay, thank you. I see your picture, Michelle. Are you speaking to this application?
Yes, Mayor Lennox, I'm going to speak to this one.
Okay.
The comments were prepared by Matthew, as you probably noted. So the variance would permit the construction of a new barn, and the variance is for a reduction to the minimum distance separation, the MDS2, from the closest road allowance. The applicant has proposed the barn in this location for operational efficiency. And as well, this location actually sets it further back from neighboring dwellings, as well as the wooded area to the north. You can see that in the air photo provided in the comments. Planning staff have no concern with the relief requested, subject to the GRCA having no objections. And this specifically relates to, if you look on page 2 of the report, the property is zoned agricultural and natural environment. And so while the variance is for the MDS setback, Matthew does note in his comments that the barn is actually proposed to be located in the existing natural environment zone. So the bylaw doesn't allow for the construction of new buildings in that zone, and it also requires a 30-meter setback from the boundary of that zone. The Wellington North bylaw does, however, provide for some interpretation. So the comments reflect that the conservation does have some flexibility in terms with interpreting that zone boundary. So I think just for the committee's sake, the comments do reflect that. At the time of the writing of this report, we had not received comments back from the Grand River Conservation Authority. And so just to note then that once we do receive those, and if the boundary is reinterpreted, then that will be taken into account. But the variance this evening is for the MDS2 reduction from the road allowance. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, I'd just like to clarify your last comments, Michelle, if I could. So the proposed building is in the any natural environment zone or in the buffer zone adjacent to it?
So the proposed building, Mayor Lennox, is actually in the zone as it exists today. I don't have a screen to share because I have notes, but this is not ideal, I know, but that's the mapping completed, and you can see the existing tree line. And so I think from our viewpoint, it makes sense to hear from the Conservation Authority with respect to that NE zone. And unfortunately, just at the time of the writing of the comments, we didn't have that, but the bylaw does allow for that interpretation. So the variance itself was requested for the MDS2 reduction. But I think in comments, just to make sure that the committee was aware that this is the zoning situation on the property, but here's provisions for it. And should we get something that indicates that it has been reinterpreted, then the building department would take that into consideration.
Okay, so there may be further variance needed to deal with that at a future date. Is that correct?
That's possible. I mean, at this point, we don't know.
I can add clarity to that, Chairperson, if I may speak.
Who have we got?
Cleon Martin, the applicant.
Okay.
There is I'm sorry, Michelle, appreciate your work. To correct, that is actually in the Saugeen Valley Conservation Area. And we do have on file an approval from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, and so they've cleared that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's move on then. We got any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Other than what's listed on the application, we did receive a letter of support from Stephen Martin, who owns property at 9165 Concession 2, stating that they're in support. They have no objection.
Okay. Thank you. And this property is right at the boundary, I believe, between Saugeen Valley and GRCA watersheds. So it sounds like the proposed location is in the Saugeen Valley watershed. Michelle, are you aware of that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lennox. I'm referring to Matthew's comments, but yeah, my understanding is that it is fairly close there. And I know from time to time we do get the wrong conservation authority, but generally speaking, we would just be looking to the conservation authority for that clearance of comments. So if that's the case, as the applicant has indicated, the comments were written such that, you know, sometimes when we have a little bit of an unknown, we want to be sure that we've acknowledged that we want to hear from the conservation authority, but still we have no concerns with the MDS itself, because that's a variance at hand. It's a little bit of a unique application in that sense that I think we just wanted to bring light to the unique zoning, I guess, on the property.
Okay, thank you. So anyone wishing to be notified of the decision must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments from the public. Mr. Martin, did you have any further comments you wanted to make?
Yes, I can provide. It's been the Saugeen Valley Conservation approval has been given to Karen and Tammy, and if you'd like to see a screen share, I can do that if it helps the committee.
No, I don't think so. I think I just wanted to understand what the process was a little better. I think we're okay that way.
I'm here. If you have any other questions, I've said all I need to say.
Okay. Does anyone else want to speak to this application? Karen, do you have anybody else registered to speak to this application?
No, I don't.
Okay. So I guess we'll turn it over to members of the committee. Any questions or comments from committee members?
I don't have any, Andy.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
I don't think so.
Anybody? Nobody
None
else?
from me.
Okay, so then we're down to the decision. So the motion is that the decision criteria is that the minor variance applied for in application A09/20 for the property described as Part Lot 12 Concession 2 with a civic address of 7814 Side Road 6 East to provide the following relief. Number one, that a reduced minimum distance separation 2 to the closest road allowance of 12 meters or 40 feet be permitted for a proposed barn, whereas the bylaw requires 60 meters or 197 feet. All those in favor? That's carried, so that's approved. And so again, anyone wishing notice needs to inform the chairperson in writing. And we'll move on to adjourning the Committee of Adjustment. So moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the Committee of Adjustment meeting of December 14th, 2020 be adjourned. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to the public meeting. So this is a public meeting for two purposes. One is for an official plan amendment, which is a county decision. And also it'll be coming back to us later for a zoning bylaw amendment for this property. So just wanted to clarify, we're holding a public meeting for both purposes, both the official plan amendment, which the county will make the decision on, and then our zoning bylaw amendment as well. So with that said, I'll call the public meeting to order and ask for any disclosure of pecuniary interest in regard to this agenda. I have none. Councillor Hearn,
Nope, none from me.
Councillor Yake,
No.
Councillor McCabe.
I have none, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Burke.
No.
Okay, thank you. So our owner applicant in this case is All Treat Farms Limited. The location of the subject land, the land subject to the proposed official plan amendment file OP-2020-06 and zoning bylaw amendment file number ZBA-04-20 are municipally known as 7963 Wellington Road 109. The subject property has a total area of 67 hectares, and location is shown on the maps in the package. Purpose and effect of the application. The purpose and effect of the proposed official plan amendment is to extend the existing site-specific rural employment area designation to the portion of the subject lands currently designated prime agricultural. Excuse me. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will rezone the lands to extend the existing site-specific uses, processing, composting of agricultural, horticultural products for the production and manufacturing of potting soil and fertilizer on the area currently zoned agricultural A1 zone. The applications for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment will result in the expansion of the existing composting facility. The proposed expansion would implement an expanded processing area consisting of a new compost facility, a new leaf processing facility, and a new carbon processing facility. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as 2 applicable agencies, and signage was posted on the property on November 23rd, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, you want to give us the rundown on this one, please?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Lennox. So the public meeting report has been prepared this evening, as mentioned, for a proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment by All Treat Farms. This is to permit the expansion of the existing composting facility on the subject lands. The official plan amendment will extend the rural employment area to include all of the subject lands, while the zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the lands to permit the expansion of the composting facility, which currently operates under 2 site-specific zoning provisions. The development, as Mayor Lennox mentioned, includes an expansion to a new compost facility, a new leaf processing facility, a new carbon processing facility, along with a truck staging area, parking area, and a relocated entrance off of Wellington Road 12. As noted in the report, there was a previous lot line adjustment application that was approved by the County Land Development Committee last year, and this created a more regular parcel for the property. A site plan application has also been submitted to the township, and it's currently being reviewed. With respect to the application itself, a planning justification report prepared by MHBC Planning and a transportation impact study prepared by Paradigm Transportation Solutions was also submitted in support of the application. Comments received to date have included the Grand River Conservation Authority and Wellington Source Water Protection, both of which have no objection. Now, with respect to next steps of the application, following the public meeting this evening, which, as Mayor Lennox mentioned, is for the county official plan amendment as well as the local zoning bylaw amendment, the technical review will be finalized. And also an endorsement from the Township Council with respect to the county official plan amendment will be sought. And I understand there is a motion being brought forward for Council's consideration tonight with respect to the endorsement for the county official plan amendment. And so once that endorsement has been received, that can be forwarded along to the County of Wellington, and then the official plan amendment can be considered by the County of Wellington Planning Committee, subsequently forwarded to County Planning for adoption. And finally, as Mayor Lennox also indicated earlier, a zoning bylaw amendment could then be considered by the local township council for consideration. So it's a multi-step process. We do utilize the one public meeting to satisfy the statutory requirements for the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw. amendment. And so this application is meant for the applicant to provide greater information and detail to the public and answer any questions. And I understand they're also on the line tonight as well too. So that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions now or throughout as we proceed.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
No, there has been nothing other than what's listed on the agenda.
Okay. So anyone wishing a request for the notice of the decision, of course, as we've talked about, there's more than one decision being contemplated here, both the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. So if you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the County of Wellington in respect to the proposed official plan amendment, OP 2020-06, you must make a written request to the Director, Planning and Development Department, County of Wellington, 74 Woolwich Street, Guelph, Ontario, N1H3T9. And in regard to the zoning bylaw amendment, the bylaw for the zoning amendment will be considered at a future council meeting. If you wish to be notified of the decision in respect of the proposed Township of Wellington North zoning bylaw amendment, ZBA 04-20, you must submit a written request to the Development Clerk, Township of Wellington North, 7490 Side Road 7 West, PO Box 125, Kenilworth, Ontario, N0G2E0, or email to tpringle, TPRINGLE, @wellington-north.com. Okay, with that said, I'll open the floor to any members of the public or the applicant who wish to make any comments or questions. I see Paul Smith here.
I can start
You
off
want-
if you want, Mayor Lennox.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Eventually, Nick Bogart is going to want to speak as well, but I'll start out. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time tonight. We're pleased to be here seeking council's endorsement of our official plan amendment. We believe this is another step forward in the evolution of the Altreat site. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paul Smith. I've worked at Altreat for the past 15 years and I live in the town of Arthur. For the past 5 years, Walker has been the owner of the Altreat Corporation. For those of you who are not familiar with Walker, they're a Niagara region-based, fifth-generation family-owned business with 1,200 employees across Canada. Walker is looking to make a further $20 million investment to improve the site and increase employment in our community. We currently employ 90 people and are planning to add 12 more over the next year. As we'll see tonight, we're looking for the endorsement of the official plan amendment for the land purchase from our neighbor to the south of the property. The reason for this purchase is to create an opportunity to reorganize some of our production areas and make them more efficient, and in some cases, relocate those production areas onto the newly acquired land further away from the town of Arthur. The Altreat site is fully licensed under the Ministry of Environment for compost processing, which will require some administrative edits in the future, but no change to the rated capacity of the site. As we will see in the presentation tonight, receiving these official plan and zoning bylaw amendments is another key step in the development of the site, with 2021 being planned as a busy time for construction. If you have any site operation questions after seeing the presentation from MHBC, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Who else have we got on the line, Michelle, to speak to this application?
Mayor Lennox, I think Paul mentioned that maybe Nick from MHBC is here to do a presentation as well.
I don't see Nick. Are you on the line with us, Nick?
Oh, there we go. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
All right. I can't turn my video on.
Okay.
So. And Madam Clerk, I believe you have the presentation slides that you can put up for us.
Yes, I do.
Excellent.
Give me a minute. Can everyone see that? Except Nick.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can actually see it too.
Good, okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. And good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and community members. My name is Nick Bogart with MHBC Planning, and I'm here to provide just a quick overview of the proposed development. With me is also Dan Curry, partner at MHBC in charge of this project. Next slide, please. The subject lands are surrounded by a mix of agricultural, residential, and open space uses within a rural area of the township. To the north is highway, commercial, residential, and open space uses associated with Arthur. To the east is commercial and rural residential uses immediately adjacent, as well as rural residential and agricultural uses. To the south is agricultural land, and to the west is a mix of agricultural land and natural environment land uses. The site's well located on two main arterial roads that serve the broader community, being located on Wellington Road 109 and Wellington Road 12. Can I have the next slide, please? The site has entrances off both road frontages, with the main commercial entrance exit being on Wellington Road 109 on the north, while deliveries enter off Wellington Road 12. The existing Altreat Farms operation occupies the northern portion of the subject lands, with the balance containing natural areas and agricultural lands. The main storage and composting areas of the site are located to the south of the active area of the property, while the final processing, packaging, and storage of finished product occurs in the northern area. Settling ponds are located in the western area of the property. A number of buildings are located on the subject lands. This includes storage buildings within the active composting portion, and a larger building complex located near Wellington Road 109, which contains offices and processing operations. The existing operation is currently screened from views of the public roadways and surrounding properties through the use of vegetative plantings, fencing, and berms. Next slide, please. So I'll just give a quick overview of the proposal. So it's proposed to extend the operations toward the southern portion of the site onto the lands recently the subject of a lot adjustment. This will allow Altreat to optimize site operations and do more of the work further away from the town of Arthur. There is a new gore system to be added, which will result in less material being located outside the cover system. New processing areas, relocated entrance and staging area, south of the existing entrance exit, and there's a new scale house, staff facility, and parking located there. They're shown on the drawing kind of in a gray outline. A little hard to see on the slide, but this is the area of the new entrance and truck staging area generally. And this is the current entrance that is to be closed. There's also extended perimeter berms proposed, and they'll be acting as a buffer. So there's a new berm along Wellington Road 12 here, and then carries over around the side of the west side of the property there. And all these improvements will help to reduce offsite impacts of the operation. Can I have the next slide, please? One of the key matters reviewed was traffic. Paradigm Transportation completed an impact review to understand potential impacts. They looked at the current and future traffic conditions as part of their work. The projected increase will result in approximately 1 second of delay during the peak hours. Altreat has been also working through the site plan process with the municipality for the reconfigured operation, and part of that has included addressing concerns related to matters such as dirt track out on the road. And there are no outstanding traffic concerns. Next slide, please. Land use compatibility was another important thing we looked at in preparing our work. We wanted to understand as part of that if there was any potential MDS concerns, so we reviewed the surrounding livestock operations. These are all shown on the map here you have in front of you. The review concluded that the surrounding agricultural operations are sufficiently distant from the existing and proposed Altreat farm operation such that the proposed use complies with the MDS1 regulations. The new configuration then is not expected to impact on normal farm practices, and it is not expected to impede machinery movement on the roads. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the proposal will support the continued evolution of an important rural employer. Based on the analysis conducted, the proposal will conform to the policy direction for rural employment uses and also conform to the provincial policy statement. The proposal has been designed to be compatible with the area. And finally, it's appropriate for the subject lands. Next slide, please. So in closing, we've reviewed the county staff report and the agenda package. Thank you, Michelle, for the detailed report and the presentation tonight as well. There have been no concerns raised with the proposal, and there are no outstanding municipal or agency comments that we are aware of. Accordingly, we're here tonight to ask for council endorsement of the official plan amendment so that county staff can continue processing the application and then bring a recommendation forward to county council. And that will set up the zoning amendment coming back to the township early in the new year, we think, which will then allow Altruit Farms to get going on the new configuration of the site. Next slide, please. That was all I had. Thank you everyone for having us here tonight, and we will be pleased to answer any questions that may arise. In addition to Dan and I, we have Paul, who you heard from, as well as Joe and Jeff here from Altruit Farms and Walker, in case there are questions that are of a more technical nature. Thank you again.
Thank you. Karen, do we have other people wishing to speak in regard to this application?
None are registered. No one else has registered.
Okay. So I guess we have no other questions from the public, so we'll swing over to questions or comments from council. Steve, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, and thanks for that excuse me, that report. Nice to see the expansion and hopefully even more employment for the people in our municipality. I guess, Paul, if I could ask, Paul Smith, if I could ask you a quick question, just with the additional buildings, and it looks like there's going to be more, I guess, storage or more work being able to be composted there. Is there, or has there been any, I guess, study on an increase in traffic at all, or?
Yeah, there was, Steve. That was included in the traffic study that Nick referenced.
Okay.
So I honestly don't know the exact numbers that were included in the study, but there will be a slight increase in the truck traffic of bringing in organics to the site.
Right.
And then, of course, what comes in has to go out. So there'll be more trucks going out. But I'm not certain about the exact quantity.
Okay.
If I had to throw a percentage at it, maybe 10% more trucks coming in the back type thing.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Councillor Burke, go ahead.
Yeah, it's nice to see the expansion in Arthur. My question is how will the construction affect the daily operations of the collection of organic materials?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're operating a facility while we're trying to expand it. Fortunately, with the acquisition of the land from the Stickney farm to the south, that gives us a fresh footprint to work on. But it's a delicate balance of getting these approvals as part of it, and getting all the operational things done in reality to prepare for a smooth expansion. So 2021 is a big year where we'll be constructing the pads on the newly acquired land to move the composting operations to, and then where that operations used to be occurring, we can repurpose for other purposes. So it is a delicate balance, but we have a full team. Our association with Walker gives us a full complement of internal people to help plan us with this. And we got a lot of people working on it right now on the planning stages to make sure we got a smooth implementation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, yes, I have a couple. The first one is about the ponds, the effluent ponds. I was just wondering how deep they are, the purpose of them, and whether there could be any potential impacts to groundwater.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. We're doing a lot of consulting studies currently to get prepared for our MOE application to amend our ECAs. The settling ponds is a wastewater treatment system in reality. It's a 6-pond system. The ponds, 5 of the 6 are, I'm going to trip up a metric to imperial here, but they are 8 feet deep. And then the 6th one is about 12 to 14 feet deep. So they're aerated ponds. So with the larger watershed going to the wastewater treatment systems, we will need to upgrade the wastewater treatment system. And we're working with consultants right now. And we're going to be with the MOE on how that's going to be designed. Essentially, we're going to carry on with it as an aerated pond system to get the water quality levels improved to the point we can use it for other purposes. And we're not going to be digging any more ponds though. And if there is any deepening, it would be modest deepening, just for like, instead of 8 feet, might have to go to 10 feet, for example, maybe 1 or 2 of them, not big changes. That answer, Lisa?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Oh, did that answer your question? Okay.
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
Sure.
I have another question, if I'm permitted, Mr.
Go
Mayor.
ahead. Go ahead.
The question will be around what most of the residents in Arthur will be asking me about is any potential impacts to odor, and whether there's an odor requirement here, or whether this could even make it better.
Yeah, so that'll be a primary discussion with the Ministry of Environment on our amendments to our ECA. Obviously, they're going to want to see improvement, not regression in our impact on the community. So, so part of this initiative is installing a incremental 32 rows of gore cover system. So back in 2004, we installed 16 rows in 2004, and then a further 16 in 2008. That basically enables the organic material to be composted in vessel under the cover. And it had a tremendous impact, positive impact at the time when that was installed. So we're going to be installing a further 32 row gore cell system, which will mean effectively there'll be less material being composted outside of gore system, if you will. So that will have a somewhat of a positive impact on the site. And by relocating a couple of the, when we say facilities, we're talking about pads. By putting a couple of the pads that we do the yard waste and leaf composting on the south end of the property, that'll be about 1,000 to 1,500 feet further away from town, which should help with the disbursement of the odors even more than currently exist. So there will be improvements along the way.
Super, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, just for clarification, I do have a proposed resolution for when we come back to our regular council meeting to endorse the official plan amendment. As was mentioned before, we're not the decision authority on the official plan amendment, but we have an opportunity to endorse it, to move it forward. And then the zoning bylaw amendment will be coming back to us once that official plan amendment is completed. Okay, don't think I have anything further to ask at this point, so I'll go check and make sure, see if anybody else has any questions or comments before we close it off.
I'm good.
Okay. Not seeing any, so I guess we'll move right to our adjournment then. So I have a motion here, moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the public meeting of December 14th, 2020 be adjourned at 7:50 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're adjourned from the public meeting, and we'll go back to our council meeting.
Mayor Lennox,
Yes.
could I just ask, so anyone who's still in the meeting now, Mr. Martin, Paul, Nick, what else am I looking for? Dan, Jeff, if you guys would just if I take you out of the meeting, it just removes you and you can't get back in. If you could take yourself out and just go back to an attendee as opposed to a participant.
Any tips on how to do that?
If you click on the top right-hand corner of your picture, two blue buttons will come up and one has 3 dots.
Yep.
Click on that and go down there. It should let you move yourself from a participant. So I will mute everybody and Mayor Lennox, if you want to proceed with the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. So our next item, of course, is to resume our council meeting. So I have a recommendation here moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the December 14th, 2020 regular meeting of council at 7:51 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. And the next item on our agenda is a budget presentation for, again, for council and for the public. So, Adam, I assume you're doing a presentation for this?
I am, Mayor Lennox. Thank you very much. And Karen, it seems that I am not able to start my video because the host has stopped it. Are you able to start or allow me to start the video again?
Oh, yes. I'm going to make you a co-host and you should be able to start your video.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. So thank you, Mayor Lennox and members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to once again discuss the 2021 proposed budget for the Township of Wellington North. Just going to share my screen here.
Just hang on a second, Adam.
Sure.
I made a mistake. Can I just get you to hang on a minute? There's a resolution I should have dealt with there.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that.
Disposal.
Sorry about that. So I have a resolution regarding the endorsement of that official plan amendment, moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North support in principle the draft official plan amendment file OP 2020-06 All Treat Farms Walker Environmental Group Inc. to extend the rural employment area to include all of the subject property as presented at the public meeting held on December 14th, 2020. Any further questions or comments from council? All those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Again, my apologies, Adam. I just forgot to get that out of the way.
No apologies necessary. So once again, thank you very much for the opportunity to present the proposed 2021 budget for the Township of Wellington North. Begin sharing my screen here. In terms of the presentation, I will start off by looking first at the proposed levy increase for the township. In its current state, the operating only budget that is exclusive of transfers to reserve and reserve funds and contributions to the 2021 capital program would see a 3.87% increase, or $195,000 over prior years. Looking at that on a more granular basis by FIR category, the general government component would see a reduction in revenues of approximately $131,000. That's driven by reductions in our OMPF allocation for 2021. Interest on cash balances driven by market forces, also largely based on what we've seen in the market through COVID. and penalties, revenue associated with penalties dropping just based on historic trend. The administration group will see a $64,000 year-over-year increase, and that's largely driven by the reduced transfers out of interfunctional transfers in support of some of their other service delivery locations. And Wellington North Holding Company, no expenses anticipated for the 2021 calendar year, as there's no activity planned for those activities. Into production or protection services, we have fire increasing slightly year over year of about $15,000. That's largely driven by increased contributions to employee and group benefit costs. Conservation Authority costs will go up year over year, approximately $11,000 or 7%. That's just based on our expectation in terms of levy increases passed on by some of our CA partners for 2021. And we also see animal control expenses rising year over year. That's largely driven by a reduction in dog tag revenues for the 2021 calendar year. Into the transportation services segment, the roads section will see a $206,000 year over year drop in expenses. That's largely driven by reductions in debt servicing costs and also a reduction in operating costs with the internalization of some of our street sweeping efforts. And within the Parks and Recreation segment, we will see a year-over-year increase of approximately $270,000 or 22%. That's largely driven by increased wage and benefit costs associated with additional sanitization processes expected given the rise from the COVID-19 global pandemic. And also, we are anticipating a reduction in revenues associated with the community center and arenas. Looking at the planning and development section, planning especially will see a year-over-year reduction in expenses. That reduction is largely driven by a reduction in revenues in the planning group, and that is offset by reduced corresponding county charges for said efforts. And municipal drains will see a year-over-year increase of about $8,000 or 21%. That's largely attributed to the drainage superintendent costs as we look towards a knowledge transfer overlap as part of a transition into the 2021 calendar year in terms of that service offering. So in aggregate, we'll see approximately $195,000 year-over-year increase, as previously alluded to, or a 3.87% year-over-year increase. And again, that is operating only and is exclusive of any transfers to and from reserve and reserve funds and contributions to our 2021 capital program. Taking those operating impacts into effect and then layering in the reserve and reserve funds that are being borne through the 2021 budget for the township. There's a comparative chart here showing 2020 to 2021. You will see that we're going to see a return to contributions to reserve and reserve funds of approximately $535,000 in aggregate. That compared to a $51,000 deficit in the prior year. That's largely being borne by the reduction in debt servicing costs for the township into 2021, with a lot of the larger bullet payments now being complete and in the rearview mirror. So in terms of the 2021 proposed fully loaded budget for the township, we will see a small increase in aggregate of 1.91% when you factor in the contributions to capital and the previously mentioned net transfers and the operating budget. If you were to back out the organic growth that the township did see in 2020 of 1.84%, that would be an approximate impact to the existing taxpayer of just north of 0% or 0.07%. And in terms of where those budget dollars would go, we see roads taking up just north of 50% of those, levy dollars, recreation taking in 17%, and admin and fire groups 10% each, and then the remainder of the service offerings rounding out the total. In terms of the distribution of tax dollars collected by the township, for every dollar that we collect, approximately 50% or 50 cents on the dollar is directed to the county efforts, 12 cents would go to our education boards, and the township would retain approximately 37 cents. What these proposed impacts will have on the average residential single-family dwelling into 2021 is laid out in this chart here. Just that top bar along the top showing the assessment from 2020 to 2021 being static. That is, there is no phased-in assessment being brought into the 2020 calendar year. MPAC was unable to complete the assessment activities in the 2020 calendar year as they were previously proposed due to the COVID pandemic. So we remain at an assessment value that is predicated on a January 1, 2016 timeframe. So that said, static, so no growth from a phased-in perspective. So what that would mean is just the levy increases as anticipated. The township tax bill would go up $2.52. The county contribution would go up about $40 year over year. And we're assuming that the education component will remain flat, as we haven't been given any guidance in terms of what that levy change is going to be into the 2020 calendar year. So in aggregate, you would see a $3,300 tax bill becoming just north of that of $3,362.80, or an increase of $42 year over year. At the bottom of that slide, I've included a link to an impact video on YouTube, which kind of details how assessment changes have an impact on the dollars levied against residential dwellings, which I'll leave there for reference, but won't get into in this particular presentation. Looking at it from an impact on taxpayers for the Wellington North portion only across a cross-section of different property types. As previously mentioned on the prior slide, the top line being the single-family dwelling. The municipal impact would be the $2.52 as previously mentioned. And then we go down and list a number of different, what you would be deemed typical property values on a cross-section of different property types. So the farmhouse would see an increase year over year of about $1.90. Typical farmland would be an increase of just north of $2. Commercial property would be $6.53 increase year over year, and a typical industrial property would see an increase of about $13 year over year. So in terms of trend, this graph here, the orange line representing the current value assessment trend and the blue line representing the municipal tax rate trend. So you'll see we have leveled off or stabilized for 2021 over 2020 levels on both the tax rate and the CVA, simply because we weren't seeing any phased in assessment value into the 2021 calendar year. Shifting into the capital program for the township, what is anticipated for 2021 is a total capital spend of just north of $15 million. That in contrast to prior years of $18.9 million and just north of $20 million in 2019. So the trend going down in the hopes that we can help stabilize that tax increase or the levy increase for our residents into the 2021 capital year, or the 2021 operating year for the township. So funding that capital program, we see contributions from revenue and grants. Grants up slightly year over year. That has an assumption that we are eligible for some additional Connecting Link program or funding for the Queen Street efforts in Mount Forest. Some contributions to the development charges and reserves, or from contributions from development charges and reserves. Increasing year over year, the $1.8 million to the $2.4 million, largely driven by the rehabilitation works for the Mount Forest standpipe. Developer contributions remaining fairly static. The gas tax contributions to the capital program decreasing slightly year over year. And really the good news story in this slide is that we have been made aware that we are going to be eligible for some OSIF grant funding for the 2021 calendar year, which is taking some of the pressure off the levy based on our previous conversation. So a really good news story there. And then we have the prior year carry forward dollars from incompleted capital works, largely associated with the Arthur wastewater treatment plant upgrades, which are coming to a close, but we do still have some bills to pay around that end. So that rounding out the contributions to the 2021 capital program for the 21 calendar year. Looking at the capital program in a little bit more granularity, we'll look at this by segment. So we have some council directed projects being the Wells Street extension, the Arthur BIA works in concert with the Connecting Link project in downtown Arthur, and the Mount Forest pool design. 20 and 20 initiatives, we have a couple earmarked for 2021, those being some asset management initiatives with some regulatory requirements into the 2021 calendar year, and also some IT initiatives for 2021, just some enhancements to our current infrastructure and some contingency to address any opportunities that might come out of the IT service delivery review that was completed in year. In terms of development-driven projects, a couple of projects, nothing added to this group for 2021, but we do see some carry forward projects on Durham and Church Street, some Durham Street East works, the South Water Street sewage pumping station design, the development of some master plans, stormwater and sidewalk, and some industrial park servicing efforts for the economic development group. In terms of administrative projects for 2021, only one listed here, and that would be the putting in some Wi-Fi in the Mount Forest downtown in the 2021 calendar year. Wellington North Fire Services has 4 projects earmarked for 2021. The purchase of some extrication rescue tools, some radio system upgrades, bunker gear purchases, and some fire hose replacement. In the roads fleet segment, the replacement of some rolling stock, no fleet growth, just replacement of some aged rolling stock in that particular segment. In bridges and culverts, 2 projects identified, a relining project on Side Road 9 East, as well as a structure replacement on Side Road 7 West. Under the roads section, some engineering projects identified for 2021. Mount Forest Drive, Queen Street East, John Street, Domville Street, Clark Street, and Fergus Street. You'll see that these engineering projects are repeated in both the waterworks and sanitary segments as well. These projects are effectively brought into the capital program to have some design completed for some projects to have them shovel ready should additional funding dollars come to fruition. Always nice to have being able to showcase projects that are ready, shovel ready, should there be opportunity for funding. Looking at full reconstruction projects, 2021 will see the completion of both Fergus and Georgina Street projects that had started in 2020. George and Smith Street being the largest new add in terms of construction into 2021, those being Connecting Link, and also the Queen Street East project identified here, which is going to be contingent on a successful application for Connecting Link funding for that project. From a gravel base rebuild standpoint, 2021 will see the continuation of the works on Side Road 10 West, and then into the resurfacing program. From a rural standpoint, we have Side Road 7 West and Line 6 earmarked for 2021. And from an urban standpoint, we have works on Church Street North, Conestoga Street North, Durham Street East, Moss Park, and Domville Street. And in terms of some independent roads projects, the continuation of some pedestrian safety measures being sought for in 2021. The design for the Mount Forest Drive turn lane, some works yard upgrades, some sidewalk installation on Eastview Drive, Birmingham Street West storm sewer improvements, and a small street light LED conversion project for 2021. Into sanitary sewers, again, just the rehash in terms of their contributions for the engineering and design projects previously mentioned. In terms of reconstruction projects, again, the continuation of Fergus and Georgina Streets and the hopefully successful completion of the Queen Street East project in Mount Forest, and some other sanitary sewer consideration projects, the completion of the Arthur wastewater treatment plant upgrades, phase 1, some AQUA recommended projects for both the Arthur and Mount Forest wastewater treatment plant facilities, and a blower study for the Mount Forest wastewater treatment plant. Into the waterworks segment, again, some engineering only projects that we've previously identified. Again, just their contributions to those particular projects. Again, the reconstruction works on Fergus and Georgina and hopefully Queen Street East. And then the identification of some independent water projects, some water main replacement on Domville, the Mount Forest water tower design, Arthur water supply study, the George and Smith Street water service upgrades being completed in conjunction with the Connecting Link project, the Mount Forest standpipe rehabilitation, and some HMI works and some of the well houses. And rounding out the 2021 capital program, Parks and Recreation, some signage and trail development expansion works, the completion of some pool communication technological enhancements at our pool facilities, the Arthur ice making piping rehabilitation at the community center in Arthur, some Arthur ball diamond safety netting upgrades, some purchases of a dive board and vacuum at some of the pool facilities as well, just the completion of those works. The Optimistis Park rehabilitation in terms of some fixturing there. And then the sports complex in Mount Forest receiving compressor upgrades and some energy control system upgrades. And rounding out the recreation segment, the Mount Forest Bill Moody Park drainage upgrades. So in aggregate, that brings the total capital program to just north of $15.1 million. So when all is said and done, factoring in reserves, reserve funds, and contributions to capital and operational works, we have total revenues budgeted for 2021 of $17.8 million. Those revenues being a reduction year over year of just shy of $575,000. Those revenues offset by expenditures of $12.8 million, those down from $13.5 million prior year. And then the contributions to reserves, reserve funds, and the capital program balancing the budget for the year. So in aggregate, total levy increase of $146,000 or 1.91%. And again, the commentary there being that the township did see organic growth in the 2020 year of 1.84%. So effectively an impact on the existing levy of 0.07%. I think that brings me to a close for my presentation.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. I guess this is the opportunity to, if there's members of the public present who would like to ask questions. Have you got anybody registered to do that, Karen, or do we,
Well,
how are we set up for that?
I know Shep called today and he wanted in, but he's calling in by phone, and he emailed and said he was having some problems. And Mr. Martin said Mr. Fry was having phone problems getting in. So I'm sorry about that. Harry said he just wanted to listen. I believe Janet wanted to listen. Mr. Benson, I wasn't clear on, are you just here observing, or did you want to ask a budget question? Okay. We have a reporter on, but that's all we have. So no one is on the line for questions. Sorry, Adam.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. I guess that brings us to council members. Anybody have any questions, comments at this point? Steve, go ahead. Then Dan. Steve, you're muted.
Sorry, I just was coughing a little bit back there. I just have one, and I don't know if it's for you, Mike, or for you, Adam. First off, I want to say thanks to all the staff, and especially you, Adam, as well, for your effort in putting this budget together for 2021. It's nice that we're able to do so much coming in the new year with only 37.2 cents out of every dollar that is collected. And especially going through what we just did in 2020. So on page 7 of your report there, or of the budget, Adam, the reserve and reserve fund impact on operating budget net transfer.
Yes.
I just was wondering why the first item there is council, and it's at $118,600 in 2020, and then it goes to 146,200 in 2021. If you could remind me about that, why that bump is there.
Certainly, happy to.
Thank you.
Council might be a little bit of a misnomer on that, but I did need a placeholder in order to show where those contributions were coming from. And really that is predicated on our reserve and reserve fund policy, which stipulates that any organic growth that the township would see in year would be directed to reserve and reserve funds. So with the 1.84%, if you take the prior year levy, multiply it by the 1.84%, that would be the contribution that is predicated within that particular line item. So while we did see some growth last year and some levy growth last year from year over year, if you multiply the 1.84%, those are where those funds are going to be directed to in terms of contributions to reserve and reserve funds for future work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thanks for your work on this.
My pleasure. It's much more than me. I had a lot of good people standing behind me.
Dan, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Councillor McCabe said in regards to all the hard work that's gone into it. It wasn't easy this year, so everybody that was involved, thank you very much. Am I seeing the right number for the Mount Forest standpipe rehabilitation at $950,000? What does that include? Like, what are we doing there?
If I may defer to our Director of Operations to perhaps round out the response to that.
Go ahead, Matt, if you've got the information.
Yep, through you, Mayor Lennox. The 950 would be a outside and an interior paint coating to the standpipe in Mount Forest. So it would be a full rehab.
Full rehab. All right. Seems like a lot, but I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, I too saw that one, Councillor Yake, I asked the question earlier about, because we were anticipating a new water tower in Mount Forest, and I asked the question, should we be spending that? And the Director of Operations answered that the current plan involves that standpipe being in use for many years to come. So the upgrade or that rehabilitation is, while it is a big dollar amount, it's going to do us for many years. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I know that it's a lot of work if they're doing both the inside and the outside, and it is it's looking kind of tough from the outside, so it certainly needs to be done. But anyway, that's all.
Okay. Other questions or comments from council? Steve?
Just along the standpipe question, just as a curiosity, what length is that, Matt? Just I know it's not a budgetary question, but I just wonder how long that standpipe is.
Go ahead, Matt, if you know.
I don't know length, like it, as far as the rehabilitation that would be done would last us for probably 30 years. Is that the question, Councillor McCabe?
I was thinking just like in meters, sorry.
Oh.
In terms of the height, Steve?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have that information on me right now.
Okay, no worries. I was just curious. I'll ask you, find out some other time from you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I just have one comment, and it's pleased to see that the OCIF funding has been verified for another year. I guess I don't have to eat crow like I was afraid I might have to. And also noticed from the last iteration of the budget, there's been some further adjustment made, I assume based on this more confirmed revenue, that we've brought the tax levy impact down from what we had previously, very close to 0%, to try to recognize the hardship that our residents and businesses are undergoing. So I appreciate staff's direction on that, and I support that direction as well. So again, thanks and as Councillor McCabe and Yake said, thanks everyone for all the effort that's gone into this. This is a big project, and I think that we've produced a result that I think we can be proud of. So I think the next step in the process is to pass the budget in early January, I think is what we're scheduled for. Am I correct, Adam?
That's correct, Mayor Lennox. The notion would be that we would bring a bylaw back to the first council sitting in 2021.
Okay, thank you. So with unless there's further questions or comments, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. And if there's anybody watching from the public that has questions or comments in the interim, please feel free to reach out to any member of council or send in a note to each of us, or to any of us, or to the township office as well. Okay, I don't see any more hands up, so thanks, Adam, for walking us through that again.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have on our agenda is the adoption of minutes of council and the public meeting from November 23rd. So I have a motion here moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the minutes of the public meeting and the regular meeting of council held on November 23rd, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There, that got us through one page of the agenda cover pages. I've got 13 more to go. But that brings us on to, I don't think we have any business arising from previous meetings, so it brings us to items for consideration. So now it's the time to pull those items out that we'd like to discuss. Anybody want to start us off, Steve?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting 1H.
1H.
That's
so that's the Rec, Parks and Leisure Committee minutes?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
8C.
Okay, 8.
Is Hayden's certificate.
Yeah, just hang on, Steve. I gotta get the right page here.
Oh, page 198.
No, I mean, I've got the agenda sheets in front of me so I can keep track. So 8C, okay.
8D.
D is in dog?
Yes.
Okay.
And 8E as in Edward.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any others? Sherry, go ahead.
1F.
1F. That's the Mount Forest BIA?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And I think I'm good.
Okay. Anybody have any others? Dan or Lisa?
Yeah, I do. Just a sec.
Okay.
more than a second.
Do you have any, Dan, that you've lined up?
No, I'm good so far.
Okay.
Um, 4A.
Okay, 4A. Which one is that now?
Economic development report with a whole lot of whereases in it and furthers and further that. 4A, page 134.
Great, thank you. Okay, any others, Lisa?
Can we pull 2F, please?
2F. Is that the consent application, B97-20?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any others?
No.
Okay, I'm going to suggest we do 2G and 2H as well. And we'll go around the table and see if anybody has any others they'd like to pull out. Steve? You're all good? Sherry?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Dan, any others you can think of?
No, I'm okay.
And Lisa, you have anything else?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So just give me a minute to get my stuff organized here. Is there any from staff that they need discussion? Mike, Karen?
No, I think they've been identified, the ones that I was considering, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's deal with approving all the others. The recommendation here moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that all items listed under items for consideration on the December 14th, 2020 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us back to 1F. I think it's the first one, the Mount Forest BIA annual meeting. Is that
That's correct.
what you've got, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start with the recommendation for there, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Mount Forest Business Improvement Association Annual General Meeting held on November 17th, 2020. Okay, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Sherry, go ahead.
So at the annual general meeting, there was a lot of really good discussion. A lot of projects that were discussed that were completed for 2020 on the main street, the new bike racks, the new banners, the Christmas decorations. We had 2 board members resign this year, but there is a recommendation further on down in the agenda to appoint a new member. And the downtown Mount Forest group that see lots of work being done on the main street, and they're on Facebook and other social media platforms all the time. This group has now become a subcommittee of the BIA. And this year they've had several very successful campaigns with the Golden Bikes. And more recently for the Christmas season stuffing stockings for seniors. So the tax levy for the BIA this year will stay at status quo. And they've got lots of lots of things planned for 20. It's a good group. It's a good mixed, diverse group. And I think they're also looking for some additional members to join the executive as well.
Okay. Great. So are they looking to recruit membership themselves, Sherry?
I think that they would like to at least have one additional board member, because they've had 2 resign this year for personal reasons. They have recruited 1. There's a recommendation further down for council in recruiting Jessica McFarland. But I think they would like to see at least 1 more member on the board as they are down 1 from where they started.
Okay, great, thank you. Other questions or comments? No. I'd just like to comment too. It's the first year that sort of the Mount Forest BAA has been rejuvenated. It's with a new membership and some fresh activity. So it sounds like it's promising for the future as well. So thanks for that, Sherry. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us to H, 1H. So there's 1, 2, 3 different recommendations here. So we'll just start at the top and work our way down. So let's start with the first one, moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee meeting held on December 8th, 2020. Any questions or comments with regard to those minutes? Steve, was that the item you wanted to speak to, or did you want to speak to the others?
No, I was going to just ask Matt, just with regards to that and what we've put in front of council today from the rec committee meeting that we had just last week. The ICIP funding recommendations for the 2 projects. We had a couple of projects to choose from, and I was hoping maybe, Matt, if you could elaborate just for the rest of council, just to elaborate on the 2 projects that were selected.
Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Yep, through you, Mayor Lennox, and thanks, Chair McCabe, as it relates to pulling this item. As it relates to ICIP, I think it's staff's understanding that the choker lanes and the sidewalk work related to the Arthur Connecting Link, as well as the generator at the Mount Forest sports complex, are kind of the priority projects. We have an upper limit as far as what we can apply for, and the filler we would use as it relates to the Eastview sidewalk project for 2021. So our intention would be to apply as close as we can to what our eligibility is for that grant. And that would kind of be the sequence of projects as far as the choker lane is a lane reduction that would be implemented in downtown Arthur to allow more pedestrian accessibility, and then some sidewalk ramps related to that project, and then the generator in Mount Forest. Those would be sort of the primary projects that we talked about. Is my summary, and happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Steve, go ahead.
I think they're both great projects, and especially the generator in Mount Forest going in. I think that's a much needed item that is finally going in, and as we have agreements with seniors' homes and stuff like that to have the Mount Forest Arena as a emergency shelter. Wouldn't be much of an emergency shelter if all the hydro was out and we didn't have a generator in there. So that was the main thrust behind that one. And then the choker lanes and the sidewalks, I think, goes right to the heart of this application as well, to get people hopefully out and walking more and walking safely as well. So thank you for that, Matt.
Any other questions, comments on that? So I just have a question in regard to the generator proposal for the Mount Forest Sports Complex. I'm assuming that's a generator that would just serve the community halls, or is that a generator that's big enough to run the ice plant as well?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Matt.
through you, Mayor Lennox. So the number that we've been working with as a staff is 160. A lot of things are set up for that already, as far as there's a transfer switch and there's an existing concrete pad, and staff is just working through the logistics, but the ice plant won't be a priority, as far as, you know, it's more a generator to keep the lighting on is what we're looking for.
The lights and the heat, or the air conditioning, I am assuming.
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But not necessarily the ice plant.
Okay. Steve, do you have a further comment?
I just have one quick one. I know we were looking for pricing on the generator. Have we found that out yet, Matt? Because I know you're.
Yeah, not at present. I know Tom had a meeting with a consultant to come up with, you know, to confirm that number of 160. But at present, we're still working with the 160.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. And I just had one other comment too, and that is in regard to those choker lanes on Main Street in Arthur, and I think that's a great idea. I mean, we hear lots of comments about traffic speed and pedestrian safety, and it's well shown that narrowing the traffic lanes actually helps to slow the traffic down. So those choker lanes are good for that, not only to make pedestrians feel more comfortable, but also to make drivers a little less comfortable so they don't drive quite so fast. So I think that's a great idea. We don't have them anywhere else at this point, but it may be something we want to consider elsewhere in the future, depending on how well that works. So I think that's a very worthwhile project. Any other questions or comments? So at this point, we're just dealing with the minutes, and then we've got another recommendation to deal with those projects in that application as well. So. Okay, so let's deal with the motion regarding that's on the floor with regard to the minutes. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next, we'll deal with the second recommendation moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North direct staff to prepare a grant application within the funding envelope guidelines for the following, as recommended by the Recreation, Parks, and Leisure Committee. Number 1, a generator for the Mount Forest and District Sports Complex. Number 2, sidewalk upgrades for Eastview Drive and for choker lanes and sidewalk upgrades in downtown Arthur as per the Connecting Link project. Any questions or comments, further questions or comments on those projects? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we got a third recommendation out of that one, moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North direct staff prepare a draft agreement consistent with report OPS 2020-37, being a report on the Township's agreement with the Mount Forest Agricultural Society and the conversation at committee. Open the floor for questions or comments. Any further questions or comments on that? Okay, I just want to clarify the discussion at committee focused on changing the terms of the agreement to more mirror the Victory Church. Is that correct? Go ahead, Matt.
Yep, yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox. That was, as far as the term of the agreement, I guess the existing agreement was a 25-year term. The ask of the Agricultural Society is a 7-year term, but I think the discussion at committee was to try to mirror the Victory Church agreement, and that's what staff's draft revision to the agreement would reflect.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, all those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. We're on to item 2F. This is report DC 2020-40 consent application B97-20 for Karen and Michael Drabick. And it is a very lengthy recommendation, which I think all of you have in front of you. So I'm going to avoid reading it out unless anyone has an objection. And I'm going to suggest that that was moved by Sherry and seconded by Steve. And I'll open the floor for, I'm not seeing anybody objecting to me not reading it, so I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Lisa, go ahead.
My one comment was that I was a little concerned about the squaring off of the parcel and maybe the removal of a little more land that I'd like at a prime ag.
Okay.
It just really concerns me. Every time you lose land at a prime ag to a house, it's gone forever, and seems to be happening more and more and more. Not here, but in a lot of places lately.
Okay, so you're not objecting to the application. You just like to encourage land division to minimize the amount of land to go with it.
That's exactly it. They're farming around that little piece right now, and I don't see why that can't continue.
Okay, so from a procedural perspective, Karen, can we go ahead and endorse this with the comments regarding the reduction in, or trying to minimize the amount of farmland included?
Yeah, because this is just a recommendation to county, but what I would suggest is you put a further clause in stipulating that, I'd have to actually look at the diagram, stipulating which piece that you don't want included.
Okay, I see Michelle has her camera on, so maybe I'll ask if she wants to weigh in here and help us with the process.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lennox. I just wanted to add that the comments that our department had prepared that do touch on that point, Councillor Hearn, of perhaps looking to retain a little more of the farmland and keep it farming. So the comments don't go to the extent of maybe identifying which area. I think from the air photo that I have in front of me, I know Council doesn't have that benefit. I think it's probably fairly clear in terms of what land area might be able to be included. So just to reiterate, perhaps, you know, the reducing the amount of prime ag land to be lost might be helpful in that case, but I just to reiterate, the comments do touch on that as well from the county. Okay, so is there value in us suggesting that recommendation in this endorsement? Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, of course, I think there's value because I do think the Land Division Committee wants to hear the local perspective, and this is that chance to reiterate to the Land Division Committee. I mean, sometimes you get before the Land Division Committee, and if we don't have something that goes beyond, you know, I do think I think there's a lot of value to add the additional thought. If that's the concern of this council, then I think that's a good idea to include it. Okay. Other members of council, do you have any concern with us including that suggestion? Steve? Sherry?
No, I'm fine with that.
Dan?
I'm okay.
Sorry, I'm all right with that addition as well. Sorry, Andy.
Okay. Do you have a proposed wording that we need to add, Karen?
Yeah, I just want to clarify with Lisa. So the piece that you want them to leave in prime ag is shown on the sketch as a field. It's about what, 38 by, I don't know, 100?
Maybe I could make a suggestion here that we just simply make a statement, something to the effect that we minimize the amount of tillable land being included in the residential parcel. Is that
That's
okay
what
with
I
you,
was
Lisa?
thinking as well, not necessarily spelling it out, but to minimize the land lost.
Okay, so that would be.
Does that make it simpler or more complicated, Karen?
No, we'll just put another clause in there and further that the severed portion retain as the severed portion, the retained portion include as much tillable prime ag land as possible.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Give me a thumbs up here. Okay. All right. So we're going to add that at the end. Is that the way we do it, Karen?
Yeah.
Thanks. I see your thumbs.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion on this application then? Do we want to do this by a formal amendment, Karen?
No, we'll just put it in. It'll be another it'll be another clause in the resolution that you've moved and seconded.
Okay. Can you read that additional clause out for us, please?
Yes. And that the retained portion include as much tillable prime ag land as possible.
Okay. Thank you. So with that addition as amended, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Now we're on to item G and H. I think this is still 2G, isn't it? Okay, so recommendation, this is in regard to the development updates for the Village of Arthur. And recommendation moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received for information report DC 2020-41 being a report on development updates in the Village of Arthur. And I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. I know that I'm the one who pulled this report, and one of the reasons I wanted to pull this report is if you go through the numbers on the report, it shows that even with our planned expansion going to phase 2 at the Arthur Wastewater Treatment Plant, we're going to have potentially more development proposals coming forward than that plant expansion can handle. That plant expansion was intended to take us out to 2031 or 2036. I can't remember which now, but it looks like right now, and this is, to me, this is remarkable how quickly this has changed, that we're having so many development proposals on the books at this point already in the process. And it's increasing, obviously, a big increase in development pressures, but it also underlines the fact that even though we haven't even started phase 2 of the expansion yet, we're probably needing to think of whether we call it phase 3 or the next version of wastewater treatment expansion. We need to start considering the potential for how we could get there if we're going to serve all these potential applications. So just wanted to highlight that issue. This is certainly in my time on council, this is something that I've never seen before. And it changes the nature of the conversations we have to have going forward, in my opinion, and that we have to start thinking sooner about planning out what our infrastructure needs are going to be for the future. So, Steve, I saw you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I think you, thanks, Mayor, through you. I think we do have to keep an eye on that. And it's amazing that, all the planning that has gone into the wastewater treatment plant, and all of a sudden it could be used up in an awful hurry. But I don't think it just affects Arthur either. I mean, Mountain Forest we've got to keep Mountain Forest wastewater treatment plant on the horizon as well. It's a good problem to have, at the same time, it's a kind of a double-edged sword as well. So I think the policy that we have in place for allotments is good, and I think that'll hold the tide back a little bit. So it's yeah, something we have to keep an eye on in the whole municipality for sure.
Yeah, and the next report we have deals with Mount Forest as well. But to me, without that sewage allocation policy, the demand for sewage allocations could rapidly outstrip our ability to build infrastructure to accommodate it. So I think this, well, I think we've all agreed that we want to see regulated growth in the community. I think this is another reason why that's really important, is so that we can make sure that we have the appropriate time to do those infrastructure upgrades that are necessary and not end up in a situation like I know Mount Forest did before the new plant there, and Arthur did obviously up until this year of a development freeze and some of the issues that go with that. So I think as long as we keep thinking about those things and getting ahead of it, we can avoid those in the future. So any other questions or comments? Mike, did you have anything further you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I think the comments from yourself and Councilor McCabe addressed, yeah, what we're kind of thinking about from a staff perspective, that it's amazing that we need to start thinking about phase 2, and we've basically are in just finishing phase 1 right now at the Arthur wastewater treatment plant. And I think it also forces us to start thinking about conservation methods, things that will extend the capabilities of our both Mount Forest and Arthur wastewater treatment plants, so that we can get as much value as we can out of them as it relates to being able to treat. And yeah, the amount of background work that's been happening related to development is at the highest pitch it's ever been in my 8 years here, and it doesn't seem to be letting up. COVID or not, certainly developers believe that there's real opportunities in Wellington North, and to try and keep up with it is going to be a challenge for our corporation going forward for sure.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And that brings us to 2H. I'm going to suggest that that's moved by Steve and seconded by Sherry, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report DC 2020-042, being a report on development updates in the town of Mount Forest. Any kind of talked about already, but any further questions or comments with regard to that? Yeah, I would just add, build on build on Mike's comments too, is that, you know, maybe this is actually the sewage treatment facility that we need to deal with first once phase 2 is dealt with at Arthur. And yeah, we have a number of options that we can look at to try to get more capacity out of that facility, whether it be an expansion, upgrade, more work with, you know, we've talked about water meters, using water meters as a conservation tool. Different communities have done other things to try to improve water conservation, you know, subsidizing low flush toilets, those types of things, continuing with our inflow and infiltration work. All of those things are potential levers we can pull to try to expand the capacity, not only in Mount Forest, but it's in Arthur as well. And so I think those are some of the things we're gonna need to look at and address in the probably not too distant future, judging by the number of applications we're seeing. So, Dan, did you have a hand up?
How do we start that conversation? I mean, how do we know that Arthur's, you know, almost completed, and we're seeing, you know, what the growth there is going to do. We see what's happening in Mount Forest. So how do we start it, and should we try to set some sort of a timeline as how and when we move forward with these discussions?
Mike, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I'll try to address it a little bit with Council. Again, one of the things that staff are working on, or you'll see coming forward, are master servicing plans. So that's really kind of part of the starting conversation about, what else do we need to do to service the potential growth. So we're in the middle of reviewing the official plan with the county, which again kind of defines the land and what it can be used for, and what the servicing requirements are for those land. And then we're going to have our master servicing plans as it relates to water, wastewater, storm. So those are really the starting point for those conversations, and making the investments based on those plans is what will be needed to happen in order to service the growth that we believe is coming. So yeah, those servicing plans will be key.
Go ahead, Dan.
So I guess how do we fund these discussions moving forward, I guess, Mike? And we're already discussing it, but I mean, there's going to be cost implications at both municipalities, both towns. And I guess, I guess my question is, how are we funding it? I mean, have we got money set aside in the near future for continuing on these discussions, or where are we with that?
So really, Councillor Yake, this is where development charges really play the primary funding source when we're talking about growth. The mayor has said for many years that growth pays for growth, and that's what the development charges. And that's part of the reason there's a 5-year review requirement, so you don't kind of lose sight of what your next needs are. So really, probably Adam remembers the dates better than I do, but I believe 2018 was our last DC development charge review. And so, within the next couple of years, we're going to have to go through another review, align our development charges with the master servicing reports so that we're collecting the appropriate dollars. The other thing that will probably come into play is that the developers in a lot of instances will now come forward to front end certain significant, so let's say we needed to get to phase 2 in Arthur quicker than we want to do it. The developers will in some instances work together and say, hey, we'll front end those costs. As you collect the development charges, you give them back to us. So that's not something we've necessarily done in Wellington North in my time here, but it is a fairly common practice when you have rapid growth, that the developers provide the capital for it.
And that helps avoid taking on more debt potentially as well.
Potentially.
Go ahead, Dan.
One more comment then. So just really, we are looking at the situation. It's on our radar. We've got there's a couple of different ways that we can proceed and fund this process as we move forward here in the next 5 to 10 years or so, right?
Yeah, I think those are fair comments, Councillor Yake. I think staff are probably better prepared, or at least I am. I won't speak for all of them, but part of the reason we are more prepared is because we went through the community growth plan that kind of forced us to kind of look longer term. 2036 is one of those kind of landmark years that we wanted to make sure from a planning perspective we had the lands that were required to service the growth, and now we're getting more specific about the actual physical infrastructure, sewage plants, water towers, which are daunting from a construction standpoint and from a dollar standpoint. But because we know the growth potential is there, we have, like you've indicated, those different funding levers that take some of the pressure off the township funding them. It's the growth, the developers that are funding.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. It's good that it's on our radar and we're paying attention to what's going on.
But along with that, though, it does put more pressure on us to make sure our long-term, financial plan for the wastewater and water systems are up to snuff, and make sure our development charges program is representative of what we have to do, and that those master servicing plans are there for people to see, and we follow through with them on a step-by-step basis. Sure. I think, the speed with which this is coming at us is forcing us to even be more disciplined around those things than in the past.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Adam, I saw you come on the screen and then disappear. Did you have something you wanted to add?
So just confirming some of the dates that Mike had alluded to. Yes, the last DC study was completed mid 2018. And with some of the changes that have come through the Ontario Act and changes to the Development Charges Act, we are going to be looking at addressing our existing DC bylaw in the not too distant future to incorporate some of those changes and become compliant with some of the requirements borne by that, which does give us an opportunity to look at some of the long-term planning needs for the township and some of those infrastructure costs that we've just been discussing. So yeah, I think we're in pretty good stead.
Very good.
And even though the DC study is on a 5-year rolling, there's nothing saying we can't do it more quickly if we think there's a need to update it to reflect some of those costs coming down the pipe.
Yep.
No pun intended.
None taken.
Any other questions or comments in regard to this? Okay, then we'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're on now to 4A. This is the EDO report 2020-30, Mount Forest and Arthur Business Improvement Associations. We have quite a lengthy recommendation again here. I think probably you guys would prefer not to hear me read it all out. So I'll ask you to look at that in your materials, and I'll suggest that that one is moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa. There is a number of components to this, but including some dollar amounts. So if anyone wants me to read it out, I will, but if not, then I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Lisa?
I only asked to pull it because there's so much going on here. It's quite a lengthy and comprehensive report by Dale, so good job, Dale. I did have one question, I guess, and you know, I'm in agreement with the recommendation. The 2.45%, how did we arrive at that number? I'm sure the BIA will ask me, so I'd like to be able to answer them.
Okay. Dale, can you field that one?
I hope so. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. I believe that is the current prime rate. So that is the rate we chose to charge the BIA.
That's bank prime.
Correct. Right? Correct.
Okay. Not Bank of Canada prime. That's just retail bank prime.
Okay, now you're getting detailed on me, and I'll turn it over to the treasurer to reply.
Well, I thought you were a former banker, Dale.
Yeah, the emphasis on former.
Wellington North, but bank prime.
Did you have something to add to that, Adam?
Only to clarify, Mayor Lennox, it is in fact the Bank of Canada prime rate is 2.45%.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Any other questions, comments in regard to this recommendation? It's good to be able to support the BIAs, especially during this difficult time for a lot of our downtown businesses. So I think these investments are good for our downtowns. Call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to 8C. This is Hayden's Hope Foundation Certificate of Recognition. And I'll say that's moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the Certificate of Recognition from Hayden's Hope Foundation. Open the floor. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this out because it was such a good, well, it's a great organization. It's a great cause. And I wanted to thank all the staff and those that have participated in Jammy Day 2020. So there's some good pictures, and It's for a great cause, and there's a lot more I think that's going on with Hayden's Hope Foundation as it carries on. So great support, and wanted just to thank everyone that participated in it.
Thanks, Steve. And while many people may be wearing their jammies below the waist for their Zoom meetings, that was a day where people could wear their jammies above the waist too. So.
No comment.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Steve, for bringing that forward. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And the next one we have here is the County of Wellington media release from November 26th, moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received the County of Wellington media release November 26, 2020. Former County Councillor Doreen Hostrasser receives the 2020 Lou Logan Award for Outstanding Service by a Woman in Politics. And I think you pulled this one, Steve, so you probably want to start us off.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lennox. I just want to do a public shout out to Doreen Hostrasser, one for her past service within our community and the county, and then the second one for choosing the River Trail here in Arthur as her charity of choice. It'll be well put to good use, and we did send a note out to her as well, thanking her for that. And yeah, just wanted to put some more, or shine some more light on Doreen.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Any other questions or comments?
Nope. Well deserved.
Okay. Well, all those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. And that brings us to 8E. Again, we've got a lengthy recommendation here. This is in regard to Duff Moore Plant Manager, Rothsay Moorfield Darling International Canada Inc. Correspondence dated December 8th, 2020, requesting support for the Moorfield facility in Rothsay, a division of Darling International Canada Inc. So I'm going to have a motion. I suggest that motion is moved by Steve and seconded by Sherry. And again, I'm not going to opt to read that one unless somebody wants me to. And with that, I would open the floor for discussion. Steve?
Just a quick one, and Mike, it's just for you, and I hope it's simple. I don't ever remember seeing any kind of a letter like this in the past from Rothsay. Have we ever been asked to support something like this before?
So through you, Mayor Lennox, Councillor McCabe, yeah, basically the impetus was that for this was Rothsay's in similar to kind of what we've discussed tonight with Altreat and Walker. They're making some changes at their plant and some additions, and are in the midst of an environmental review with the ministry, and reached out to the surrounding municipalities, Mapleton, where they're located, as well as Minto and Wellington North. And we were notified that we could have actually been a participant in the review, the tribunal. We could have played a party to it if we wanted to. In our conversations with Mr. Moore, it was more basically, I suggested, and in concert with Minto really, that Wellington North would acknowledge Rothsay's role in the community, that it's important, that they're a key employer, the service they provide is key, it benefits some of our community members too, but that we didn't necessarily want to get into the weeds as it related to the actual tribunal. So that's what the impetus for the letter was, is that basically Mr. Moore was steered in that direction by myself and by the CAO and Minto, that if Mapleton wants to take a more active role because they're located in Mapleton, that'll be a decision that they make. But I indicated to him that I would be comfortable bringing this type of letter in front of our council for you guys to basically endorse Rothsay as a good business, some that benefits our community, and that would be kind of the extent of our involvement.
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions or comments? Sherry, go ahead.
this is to Mike. If we are a commenting agent and we comment and we pass this endorsement, do we not risk having to go further into the whole process?
Fair question, Councilor Burke. No, yeah, basically all we're doing is giving this to Rosse for them to take to the tribunal and say, hey, we have support from the local municipalities in terms of our operations, but we will not be a party to the tribunal. We would have to actually submit a request in order to do that. So this just becomes a piece for them to make their case about their role as a positive employer and a positive service provider within the community. But outside of that, we would have no additional role.
Okay, thank you. I just have one further comment. I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that we would comment on something that's not even really in our jurisdiction or municipality. I can appreciate provide services for us, and they may employ some of our residents, but I'm a little bit puzzled as to, why we would comment on something that doesn't really directly impact us.
Okay. Yeah, I share your concerns there, Councillor Burke. I also am aware that this facility discharges into the upper Conestoga River, as does the village of Arthur, and potential downstream impacts will also potentially affect future changes in the Arthur wastewater area as well. I'm a little wary personally of getting involved in something that's reached a tribunal stage with an endorsement of this nature. But I suppose if we're just talking about them as an employer and an essential service provider for one of our major industries, there's no harm in that. But it is a little unusual, I think, in its scope. So I'm a bit ambivalent about it, to be quite honest. I do think they are an important employer, an important service provider, but they are out of our jurisdiction, and what they discharge into the stream there can have impacts on our communities as well. I certainly don't want this in any way to be giving them some sort of endorsement that this is a pass for less than stellar environmental behavior. So, any other questions or comments? Steve, go ahead.
I don't think that's what we're giving them or allowing them to get a pass, but I think just recognizing that, yeah, they're in the community and they can help out our agricultural background and employ probably some of our residents. I think that's as far as we go down this path. I don't think we can't get tangled in with anything further down, just on the way that Mike has suggested it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as long as we're certain that we're not going to get tangled into their processes that obviously are going on, I guess it can't hurt.
Okay. Dan?
The last paragraph in that recommendation, and further that council hereby requests the environmental review tribunal will work with, I'm okay with supporting it up until that point. I don't think we need to be requesting that the tribunal work with them in addressing the appeal.
Okay. So we could delete that clause if other members of council are comfortable with that too.
That doesn't, I could go either way on that one.
Yeah,
Lisa?
I
Sorry,
kind of
Terry.
like that removed. I think I agree. I'd like to see that removed, I think. That would
Okay.
make me more comfortable.
Okay. Lisa?
Yeah, I could be amenable to removing that as well.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, Mayor Lennox.
Okay, so let's amend that to remove that final clause. Any other discussion before we call the question? Okay, so I'll call the question with that final clause removed.
Sorry, Mayor Lennox, there are two recommendations here. One to receive the correspondence,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second one,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay.
Yep. So let's deal with the receiving first. I have a mover and a seconder for that. That's my mistake. I apologize.
No, that's okay. No,
So sorry, Council. We're just dealing with the receiving the report first. So all those in favor? That's carried. And moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa. And this is the second part of the form, and we talked about removing the final clause.
Mhm.
So any final discussion before we vote on that? Okay, so just with the final clause removed, all of those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, I think, did we get them all, Karen?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're on to notice of motion. Anyone have a notice of motion this evening? Okay. Community group meeting program report or items of community concern that anybody would like to share with us this evening? Lisa, go ahead.
I guess I can go first. Okay, so had meetings, Mount Forest Chamber and the Arthur Chamber. Of course, you're aware, Mayor Lennox, of the Excellence Awards on December the 18th. On December the 29th, they will be having their AGM. That will be in a virtual format, and I'm unsure of the actual format right now. They haven't kept me in the loop on that. They're working that out. And they will be having or at least they spoke about having a special general meeting again in February to modify a new, some of their bylaws, mostly to recognize virtual meetings. At the annual general meeting, there will be a new president. I'm not going to say that at this point in time because I think maybe saying who the president is prior to that person being voted in is not the right thing to do, but I guess I could report on that in January. But I'm very excited about the new president, and thanks to our outgoing president of the Mount Forest Chamber. The Arthur Chamber, they did have great feedback on the virtual tree lighting that they had, and the community really did enjoy it. They are looking at trying to make something like that an annual event. And I did want to talk about something that I thought was kind of cool. And I wanted to give some recognition to something that the Arthur Chamber has been working with the grade 6 class at Arthur Public School. We've heard a lot about Mr. Cox and his grade 6 class and how they like to get involved in their community, and they've done that with the Arthur Chamber. I don't know who reached out to who, but the Chamber did, it's about shopping in your community and shopping local. So they're doing a project on that. So Tom, the Arthur Chamber president, Tom Gorecki at Foodland, he sent them a video that they could watch in their class about shopping local. And then they worked on quite a number of projects to come up with ideas and slogans and things. And I wanted to give them their credit a few minutes here because I think that, you know, with the current situation, the kids aren't getting a ton of credit. So I just wanted to show, if I can, just a second, I'll try to screen share some of the stuff that they're working on. I've got a picture inside their class with no kids in it. So if I can grab that here. I'm not as fast as you, Karen. There we go. Screen sharing. You can't really zoom in on this, but there's some pretty innovative ideas here, and they've done a lot of work on this project. So it's great to see the kids taking ownership of their community and Mr. Cox engaging them to have these discussions. They did a poster incorporating all of their ideas. The chamber's using that and sending it out to some of their members, again, about shopping local or in the community. So thanks again to the Arthur Chamber and the grade 6 class for working together on making our community better. That's it for my report.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Anybody else have something they'd like to report? Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just really wanted to thank the Mount Forest Lions Club again for hosting a successful reverse parade to kick off our unprecedented Christmas season. I understand from one of the Lions Club members that was directing traffic, they had over 300 vehicles come through. The parade, the participation with floats and everything was much smaller, but it really helped sort of start the Christmas season. I'd just like to say, with the holiday season fast approaching, I hope that the residents, our staff, and my fellow members of council stay safe, be kind to one another, have a Merry Christmas and 2021.
Thanks, Sherry. Any other community group program report this evening? Sorry to put you on the spot, Dan, but I did have a question. Do you have any update in terms of the hospital project in Mount Forest, where that's, how that's progressing? You're muted, by the way.
Now I'm getting like Steve. No, it's moving okay. They've got it pretty much closed in now, so hopefully they can get a lot of the interior stuff done throughout the winter, and they've been busy. The hospital in itself has been busy up there. People have adjusted, I think, quite well to the redirection of all the departments in the hospital. But overall, I think they're coming along. I think they're a little bit behind schedule, but once they get closed in here for the winter, they should be good.
Yeah, so the COVID-19 hasn't slowed them down too much with that project?
I don't think so. They've certainly been doing a lot of outside work up until up until the last week anyway. So I'm sure it's affected it a little bit, but they're making good progress.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Anybody else have anything further? I guess I was just going to add a couple of comments with regard to Wellington North Power. You've probably seen the last updates. Looks like profitability is going to be down a little bit this year compared to previous years, largely because of demand down during the lockdown early in the year. But it still looks like we're going to be in a positive position at the end of the year. And while the payments have been coming in a little slower, the staff have been able to keep kind of on track of that so we're in pretty good shape going forward, I think, and getting ready for accommodating some additional growth. I think Wellington North Power is certainly being included in the discussions around the growth piece, so they're aware of some of the potential growth coming to our community as well. And if anybody has any questions, of course, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, we've been busy. The Wellington North Power has been busy this year, just dealing with the pandemic-related challenges and carrying on with reconstruction, infrastructure renewal, and new builds as required. The other thing I'd like to talk about briefly is just around the COVID-19. I'd like to, when we spoke last, things were looking pretty grim in our community in terms of the numbers. And I'd really like to just shout out to our community members for the extra effort, obviously, that's been put in to bring the numbers down in our community. People obviously know what needs to be done to make it happen, and it's been happening, and I hope it continues to happen now and particularly over the Christmas holidays, which will be very difficult. No question about that. The changes necessary to keep everybody safe is certainly not conducive to a normal Christmas. But yeah, where the numbers have come down nicely in our community, and let's hope it stays there. It'll help us get back to hopefully back to orange from red as soon as possible, and that will be hopefully good for our small businesses, not to continue to make their lives even more difficult. So again, thanks to all of you in terms of sharing the word, and thanks to all of our community members and partners for making it happen on the ground. So, and like you, Councillor Burke, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hope that they stay safe over the holidays, and we can all meet again in 2021. And with the vaccines arriving in our community, the future is looking a little brighter. So. Anybody else have anything further they'd like to discuss this evening?
No.
Okay, I guess that moves us on to bylaws. And we have recommendation moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that bylaws number 100-20, 101-20, 102-20, and 103-20 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Any discussion on those? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're now going to move to a closed meeting session. So before we deal with this, anybody who's following us from the public, we will be moving to a closed session where public will be excluded. So I have a motion here, moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan. So let me get the right page. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North go into a meeting at 9:28 p.m. that is closed to the public under subsection 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, specifically for item C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and item E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. All those in favor? That's carried. We'll move into closed session then. You need a couple minutes to get everything sorted out, Karen?
Yes, please. I just want to confirm in closed session, staff will be Matt, Corey, Sarah, Dale Clark, Chris, sorry, and Adam. That's a, no? Yes, Adam.
Adam, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Corey and Sarah. Matt, are they?
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
I would say Corey, not Sarah.
Okay, that's,
Sorry, Sarah.
Okay, so does anybody need a couple minute bio break? So why don't we just, why don't we take 5 minutes? We'll reconvene at 9:35 if that's okay.
And if that's what everybody's doing, please mute your mic and turn off your video. Who's typing out the SOS message?
Hey, Karen, just as a point of housekeeping, just wondering if we should stop the recording. Hey, Karen, just wondering about, from a housekeeping standpoint, if the recording should cease?
Oh, yes, thank you.